So when we started this project, I want to say we made the announcement in December of, what year was that, guys? 2015. 2015. And then we really started through the beginning of 2015. And then by March, so a year ago, you had gotten your feedback from, your 360. And it was really hard for a lot of you. And you came up at that time with names that you wanted to call yourselves, or what you felt the feedback was on yourselves. Do you guys remember what those names were?
Yeah.
I get
Snippy.
Then I was snappy.
Snobby.
Short.
Seasoned.
Shy.
And not in a good way, right?
No, right.
So Rosemary, Brenda, and I put our heads together and we decided that you all needed to change your perspective on how you thought of yourselves from the Seven Dwarfs. So if you would, go ahead and open and reveal.
I have to think of something like
And if you notice, the tissue paper is a butterfly tissue paper, the symbolism in that.
Oh my God, these are teachers.
I having. Oh, this is
These are so cute.
So the Seven Dwarfs have been redubbed.
These are so cute.
So if you, I know it might ruin your hair, but if you can put them on and humor us for a second. Whoops. Okay, Rosemary, I need your help. If you'll grab, I'm going to let Rosemary grab. And there's an extra that comes with this.
Sam can't see now.
And you're all getting your own magic wand, too. It's a good thing you had a helper down there, Sam. So these are the words that we came up with you with feedback from your peers, too, and some from your one big thing. Tammy, instead of shy, you are?
Confident.
Right, exactly. Selena, instead of snobbish, you are?
Open.
Exactly. Lori, instead of seasoned, you are also.
Calm.
Mm-hmm. And Sam, instead of snippy, you are?
Patient.
And Christy, instead of, I can't even say it, sucky, because I never really thought that anyway. It is? Pause, that's right. And Michael Ann, instead of short in a good way?
Proud.
Or not in a good way. And then Melissa, instead of snappy, you are? Honest. I think you guys have done a really tremendous job this past year. And I dub all of you my favorite dwarfs. So we're going to break into your interview groups. You can either wear your hat or not wear your hat. That's up to you if you want to. And Tom's going to take over the mic, and he's got some, I think, some edgy questions to ask, don't you, Tom?
So we're ready to begin with the first group. Tammy, Michael Ann, Christy, and Melissa, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. I know this is a surprise to be interviewed. So tell me a little bit about this program. It's been going on for a year?
Yep, it's been a year now, so all of 2016 we worked on these. We all have a different project to work on. I have a leadership project. I'm known as a shy person, but now I'm confident. So that was mine. Their whole office kind of did, well, our peers and our direct reports did surveys just to see some nice, some not nice of what we are, how they perceive us, and how we perceive ourselves.
So you were judged by your peers and by coaches?
Yes.
And were they brutally honest?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And that's what we wanted.
I was going to say, that's good and bad.
Correct.
I mean, sometimes you hear what you don't want to hear, but that's how you grow and develop by hearing what they have to say, and then you pick up on that. And is there one big thing, am I getting the terminology right, that you pick up on and you identify, and what do you do with that now, that one big thing that you identify?
You have to make a progress, almost like a progress report, continuum of progression. and you have to make sure that you're doing items that are measurable to make sure that you're following through with your one big thing. One of the things that we had to do was bi-monthly, we had to send reports to the head woman that we were working with, and I'm pretty sure I was the worst one. I would forget.
A lot of shaking of heads.
It was
you weren't.
terrible. It would be on my calendar, and I would just be like, oh, there it is again. 2 weeks went by really fast.
How difficult was it to do this? There's a lot of soul searching, I'm sure. There's a lot of being brutally honest with yourself. How difficult is it to do this to yourself?
I would say on a scale from 1 to 10, it was probably a 12. It was probably a 12. Dina's over there laughing. I was, and I'll be upfront and honest because I was through the entire thing. There was a choice, so they told us, which at first I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be good. Then I realized it was a lot. And I was looking at it as, this is just one more thing on my desk. I'm pretty sure I have enough to do. Took me probably 3 months before I wrapped my arms around it. And once I did, it was no longer another thing to do. It was part of what I did every day. So.
And like a lot of projects, I imagine it can be a few steps forward, a few steps back. And that's part of the process.
Yeah.
And you can apply it to not only excuse me, your work life, but also at home. You know, I've caught myself numerous times at work and at home. Just worked on it in both places.
And as you go along, you identify what works well and what doesn't.
Right. We all kind of served as each other's buddies on that as well, where if we saw somebody going back to an old way or trying to point out to them why they were I don't remember, snooty. I don't remember what you were. If they were at that time, you kind of knew each other, and we knew what we were all working on, so we could just go to them and, you know, whether right in front of people or on the slide, and be like, you're kind of doing it again. And that helped your bi-monthly reflections, because then you could like write it down at that point in time, so you wouldn't have to hurry when you were time to send those off that we were all so diligent at doing.
So you were all going through the same thing, so you understood.
Right.
And that peer response was helpful to have
Yes.
your the peers. Did you have times, though, as you were going along, you're like, why am I doing this?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's part of it.
Right. In the beginning, I think it was more than it is in the end. And I think we've all kind of grown together and independently, just so it definitely benefits you with our work life and, like Chrissy said, our home life at the same time.
So along the way, frustrations?
Yeah.
What were some of the big frustrations as part of doing this?
My one big thing or portion of it was to pause and think before I speak. And I would a lot of times just speak and then like, oh, there it was again. I should have paused. So I would catch myself after, but you start to train yourself and you get better at it. So depending on what your one big thing is, but you can, like I said, train yourself and get better at whatever it is.
And with frustrations probably come equally, hopefully, times of surprise, maybe, or delight that this is what it's all about. Makes it worth it. Did you have those moments as you went along as well?
I think with one of the things you needed to do was be honest with yourself, especially what I was working on. I needed to be honest with myself about my workload. And when you do that, you know, you get good feedback because people realize what you're working on. We had a great support system, so that was really helpful.
And you get a lot of feedback, you share a lot with your peers, but is there one thing that you didn't share with your peers? This is going to be like a Maury Povich show that we're doing right now. Is there one thing you didn't share with your peers that you'd like to share now? We don't have anyone waiting backstage to come out, but was there anything that you really didn't discuss with your coworkers or your peers that maybe?
No, we were.
So this was a really
very
open.
Yeah.
Put it all out there.
Yes.
And did that really help by opening up
Yes.
and knowing that they were going through the same thing, being able to talk to them about it? that really helped
Yeah.
the whole process.
It's like the dominoes. Once one person opened up, it was like, oh, okay, we can say that here, and everybody kind of opened up from there.
And obviously, as you go along, you develop a sense of pride, probably, in accomplishing what you're setting out to accomplish. And if you look back now you've reached this point, is there a certain moment that you identify, or is there something that you point to and gives you the greatest sense of pride? Or is it just
No, I think just really
for
working
being
on what
able
we
to
had
stick
to
with
work
it
on.
and do it
Yeah.
for a whole year plus,
Yeah.
and now get to this point where you can look at it and say, I accomplished this.
And now it's kind of natural.
Yeah.
It's kind
I
of
still have
like,
to
why
catch
weren't we
myself.
doing it all along
Yeah.
kind of thing. You know, it's just one thing that like for me, it's a shyness thing. So I've always attached to somebody, and now I tend to vary off on my own a little bit more, which has helped me grow. So for me, it's like, why did it take me so long to do this? I'm old at this point in time, but for me, it was great.
And as Christy mentioned, you apply this not only at the office but at home. Do you see where you can? It's really helped you in a number of ways, personally as well, both at work and at home.
Yeah. I realized that I don't have to do everything on my own at home. I do have a husband, and he can do stuff too. So when we get home, you know, we team up, we work together instead of him saying, you know, is there something you want me to do? And I'm like, oh no, I have it. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Because he gets to come home and relax. Now we do it all together and we relax together.
So this personal growth, will this make your job more enjoyable? Will you get more out of your work?
I think more successful, really. I mean, we have pretty fun jobs, obviously. So I think just more successful is where it's going to be. It's letting us overcome that obstacle that could have been holding us back before. So a lot of personal growth.
Yeah.
I'm very glad I did it.
Me too.
Like me compared to before, I'm a lot different now, I think.
Fantastic. And here's the point I didn't tell Dina. What do you think overall of how the training went?
I thought it was great.
I did too.
Again, we kind of were like, yeah, in the beginning, but I think we all embraced it.
Once we embraced it, we just took right off. Some embraced it quicker than others. I was on the slower train that was going along that road.
Yeah.
So, you know, of course, in my head, I'm the absolute busiest person in the office. So that was one more thing. So,
Aren't we all like that?
yes, nobody is busier than I am, and I'm very, very glad that I did it. Even though I considered myself very, very busy, once I worked on my one big thing, which was empowering the people that I managed to, you know, answer their own questions. I was their go-to person, constant. Once I did that, my stress level it went from here to here. So.
Wonderful. And now I always wrap up interviews by asking, was there anything I didn't ask you that you want to add? Anything I didn't cover? Any points you want to make?
Really cool ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hats. And new names. And new names.
Better names?
Yeah.
Better names. We did have a lot of fun with the seven dwarfs,
Yeah.
though, but I'm glad that we are now, you know, named something else. So.
Me too.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it. I know it
you.
was a surprise, but you did well. Great. All right, so here we go with round two with Selena, Lori, and Sam. Welcome. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
So how was this training program for the past year? How would you describe it?
Interesting.
Intense.
Challenging.
Interesting words.
I became
Intense,
patient.
challenging. So, you did. How did it test you? How did it challenge you?
It pushed you to your limits. Things that I've tried to work on by myself over the few years, it made it more in depth and then.
Now you used the word intense. That suggests to me that it was at times
It was.
almost overwhelming or really.
It was.
It was.
It was.
A lot of times when you were like, why am I doing this? And what am I getting out of this? And
Yes, especially at the beginning when you're setting everything up, it really tested your limits and stuff, and then you're like, oh, there's just too much work, but it was worth it.
how did you get to that point where it was worth it? What were some of the things as you went along that
I personally
you overcame?
Yep, I personally noticed my attitude change because it was something that I was working on. So my demeanor around the office to me was better. At least I hope for everybody else too. For me, it was okay, but.
And Laura, you said it was challenging.
It was challenging. I was working on refining, staying focused, and using my team's talent. So it meant me stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit and relying on other people. I'm not one who usually says no to people. I usually take everything on myself and then sit there wondering why didn't I pass this on or do that. So I've learned to take that and rely on other people and let go with that. And I think they like the responsibility and being part of a team and doing different pieces of the project. So it was a challenge to get myself to let go of that, but I think I did pretty well with it, so yeah.
And Sam, you used interesting, which probably is reflecting on what at times was a challenge.
Exactly. Both, I don't, like Selena used intense, that's a little rough, strong for me, but challenge is, Lori, yeah, that's a good word. It just, you have to change yourself, and you have to be willing to change yourself. So that is a challenge, and to me that was very interesting, seeing all of us, not just us three, but everyone else, change. And it's all for the good. And then before us was the group of the officers, is that right? And just seeing how they changed as well. And then there's a phase 3, and since I've been through it, I'm really curious to see how the next phase, how they react and see them go through it.
So everyone else will be facing phase 3 then?
Not
Not
six
everyone.
Six more people.
Yeah.
Six more people.
And what will they face in phase 3? What will be the next?
Well, they'll have to choose their one big thing, just like we did, and just seeing how they progress will be fun.
The one big thing, was it easy to identify? Did you know this? I know this is what it is, and whether I admit it
I
to
did.
myself,
Yeah.
or was it difficult to pick and choose?
I think it's difficult to pick the main thing you want to work on, because I think we all recognize we all have things that we need to work on that we could do better with. But I think refining it down to that one thing that you were going to just like pinpoint and focus on was not very easy at times.
And how early was that in the process? How many months have you been working on that one big thing, or has it been the entire year?
We had to pick it within the first month, and then then you work on it throughout the year.
You do, so that's one of
Yes.
the big priorities that you.
Right.
Huh. When you went through this process, were there things that worked well for you and other things that didn't work well as you tried to reach your goal?
I think the reflections twice a month, it seemed like it was difficult to begin with, but I think having to do that, once you got into the mode and did it, you would then start seeing things you were doing during that 2-week span and making little notes and stuff, and you'd catch yourself like, oh yeah, this would be good to let Kimberly know, or this would be something to say, I still need to work on this. And I think even though they were something that I know I had them on my calendar, sometimes it's like I got nothing, but actually, actually you would if you would start really catching yourself and making those notes, then you would have stuff.
And I know the other group we talked about having your peers going through the same thing being helpful, and also being brutally honest with you was helpful. Did you find that as well?
Yes. Hence our nicknames.
Yep.
The nicknames came from, that's what people actually said about us. So like someone said, I was snippy. But what I found very helpful was my coach was Dina.
Yeah.
And we would meet once a month off site. We would go and have coffee or whatever, and she'd put me on the spot, and it would help me follow through with what I had to do. It's like we just didn't go and have coffee. It was everyone knows Dina, she has an agenda. And I had an agenda each day that we went. But it was good. It was a good thing. So that was very beneficial and helpful to me through this process.
I think everybody being open about what they were working on was good too. I think that really allowed everybody to help kind of keep you moving in the right direction on that, because everybody did really share what they were working on.
But make no mistake, it was not an easy process.
No, and if I can chime in, the first, I think the second month into it, we had Kimberly, Lori referenced her name before. I was on a phone call with her, and she said to me, "You need to get on. You need to get on it. If not, you need to get off." So she's like, "Oh, okay." So I was just like, and then she's like, "Nope, you have to get on. You have to get on board." So that was eye-opening.
So a lot of soul searching,
A
a
soul
lot
searching,
of
yeah.
being really honest with yourself.
Right. Yep.
Were there frustrations along the way? If so, what were some of the biggest frustrations you faced?
Well, in the beginning, mine was not being fully committed to it, and that what made me frustrated because I knew I wasn't. And then once I fully committed, the frustration eased.
Was it hard? Was one of the frustrations, is it hard to do that when you're trying to focus on your work as it is and busy and everything else, and to have these extra things that you need to do? You know the goal is good and that the end you hope is going to be good, but when we're all busy in our jobs, sometimes to have extra stuff.
Yeah, as Melissa said, we all think we're the busiest person in
Right.
the office.
Right?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa.
Yes. But after Melissa,
After
the rest of us all.
The second.
What about this whole thing for the past year? What really pleased you? What surprised you or pleased you that you weren't expecting?
I'll jump in.
I was going to say.
We have, was it my annual? We have an annual performance development discussion. It's a yearly thing, which we do quarterly as well, but on my yearly discussion, which was in December, there was it's done by my peers, coworkers, and other people in the office, and there was no negative comments about me on that, and in the past there has been. So to me, that was huge. So I knew I was doing something right, and it's paid off. So I was very proud of that.
That's nice.
And I look at Laura because she's my manager. So.
Lori and Selena, any surprises for you as you went through this?
Do you want to go?
I'll go first. Mine was after you balanced it in with your work, how easy it actually flowed and stuff. I mean, it was really hard to adapt to it and try to fit it in, but from there, it was pretty good.
Sometimes we always anticipate it's going to be so difficult, and in the end, we find out once we accomplish it, it's not as difficult as we had feared.
Right.
Exactly.
Now, I asked the other group, was there anything that you haven't shared with your other coworkers about this project that you'd like to share now? Was there any special thing or any one thing?
I don't know.
This
we're
is the
pretty
Maury
open.
Povich moment where you drop the bombshell.
Yeah.
Yep, and then our one-on-ones helped too, because like I was with Dina as well as Sam, and she pushed me to the limits, and I told her whatever I could, and then it came out in the group. So.
And what Selena means with group is we'd meet, this group here plus Brenda would meet once a month, and we were pretty open with everybody and honest about the whole process.
Now, Sam, you and Lori are so experienced. I mean, so many years.
Her season. Calm.
Do you think this will make your job more enjoyable? I mean, you've worked so many years, but do you think that now using what you've learned is going to make your job even more satisfying and enjoyable?
I feel it'll make my job more enjoyable because one of the thing I was working on is, well, it's kind of a combination of everyone, but setting boundaries. And when people come into my office, I'm more relaxed now. Like I'm not like, who's here now? So to me, that's helpful. That will make my job more enjoyable. Yes.
And like I asked the other group, is this something that applies not only to your job and work, but outside the office as well? Do you find that you can apply it to your family life and
Even
handle
driving in the car.
Certainly.
all the
Yes.
traffic jams in Plattsburgh? You can,
That's right.
You can deal
why
with
does
them.
that car
and-
pull out in front of me?
Yeah.
I don't say that anymore.
Exactly. And is there a great sense of pride that you've been able to accomplish this? A lot of hard work, obviously, a lot of self-reflection, but is there now a sense of pride that you've done this, you've completed this? Most have completed. There is another phase for some, but have you seen a lot of growth in yourself, and is that something you're proud of?
Absolutely.
Oh, certainly.
Yep. No doubt. Go team.
Go team.
So we're ready to go. So the coaches are
All
here.
right.
Welcome.
We are. We're missing Brenda. She's unfortunately not feeling well today, but that's okay. We're going to fill in for her.
Yep.
So tell me, what's this program? What's the goal of the program?
To harass our employees.
Do they feel you succeeded?
They say I have an agenda, so mostly it's just to make them miserable so that they hate their jobs even more and want to beat me up. No. You know, I'm a very, maybe a leader. I have a lot of really funky ideas about leadership, and I don't fit in a nice box with things. And I would say, like, we started working on our core values and guiding principles, and the consulting firm we work with on that said, you know, if you want to build this out the next step, because we also have people in our organization that want to aspire to leadership roles. And so we've always had kind of this nebulousness of, well, what makes somebody be a senior officer? What if you want to be a manager? What about a junior officer? So we wanted to build that out and came up with, they had a program that we tailored to us to say, what are your core competencies? And that was the leadership framework that I sent to you, so that we build it out based on what your level was. So it would give us some idea of, if you're aspiring to a certain role, here's some competencies that you really need to have in your toolbox. So we started with the officer group, Rosemary and myself being part of that, because our premise was we didn't want it to be that we hadn't done it ourselves. We didn't want judgment to be there. Like, look at me, I'm so special, I don't have any of my stuff in my own closet. So we all had to unpack our own things and be vulnerable with each other. And for the senior officer group, it was very healthy for us, because we're always together in meetings talking about numbers and figures and strategic plans and all these things, but we came together in a different way, I think.
Built more camaraderie, I think, among the group. We all realize that we all have vulnerabilities and we can support each other through those. And it made us stronger, I think, as a team to move forward with the organization.
And we laughed really a lot.
A lot.
And that was a great stress reliever too, because you realize how much more you have in common than what you have that's not in common. That was good.
And then for the employees, often to get them to the next level, to help them grow,
Right.
you need to challenge them.
Yes, and so that became the what do we do now? And we had some obvious people that were, Tammy, who you met earlier, she's a junior officer, so we knew we wanted to have her part of the project because she was just promoted in the middle of this. We had obvious managers too, both Melissa and Lori are both managers. And then we had other key people. Melissa, did I get Melissa and Lori?
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? Okay. And then we had also other people within the organization that we saw leadership potential in them. And so with Michael Ann and Christy and Sam and Selena, they were all in positions where they either have a unique position or they've been there long enough, or I'm trying to think, how would you categorize it?
I think we saw opportunity to bring along the next generation of leaders within the organization. You know, we sat back and I think looked at the senior group and said, we're not going to work till we're 80. So we need to be bringing some people along
Rosemary
who
might.
show. No, I'm not.
Except for that she's the busiest person in the office.
Right, Melissa? So, but I think we saw an opportunity to bring some people along and work on these core values and these strengths that we feel people needed to help lead our company forward. So it's everything from, on the senior level, financial management, but it's building collaborative relationships. So getting people to work among departments and bring other people along. So for managers, they have a staff. How do they bring their staff along and get people to maximize their potentials? So I think we saw it as a kind of a backup for us too, and a succession plan of sorts. For the agency as a whole.
And then about the same time we transitioned the HR role. And so Brenda, Rosemary, and I all split up those duties, and we really needed other people to bounce into some of the things that we needed to let go of and grow other people. So it was kind of symbiotic. People were looking for more opportunity to grow, and we were looking for some opportunity to have some other help. And I think that kind of came together about the same time. But I think we wanted them to have a core group of people they were working together with. And what's interesting about this Seven Dwarf group was they were kind of challenging right out of the gate. I have to say they didn't fully embrace the project, and they were a little difficult. In fact, they were kind of more than a little difficult. And they were like, okay, we said yes because it's you. Okay, fine. Nobody wanted to say no, even though I told them they could say no. Nobody says no.
They said they wouldn't say no.
They wouldn't say no. So then I said they could have said no, and they're like, really? Come on, Dina. You're like, we're going to say no? So they all said yes, but then they were into it, and it was like, I think that this is how it goes, Tom, is that you get people in a room, they don't want to really do it, but then they really do want to do it. And then they really like doing it. And then if they weren't there, they'd have felt left out, and they would have felt bad that they weren't there, right?
But I think Melissa said it earlier, but I think it's what really happened with the entire group is they all in the beginning were looking at this like one more thing I have to do. Yes, Melissa's the busiest person in the agency. She can't do anything else. At least she'll tell you so. But they felt compelled that they had to do this. It was one more thing. And when they finally flipped the switch and said, it's not one more thing, it's really part of my daily routine. If I make this something I work on every day and it's just part of my work, that's when we saw them all start to open up and really embrace the project and really take off with their one big thing and what they were working on. They made a lot of success when they finally accepted that this was just part of their regular day.
And this is part of professional development. We do a lot of insurance training, but when you think about it, working with coworkers, working to the best of your ability, I think that's what we're all trying to do, is have people work up to their top level of what they're able to do. So it was, and this was, on the end, they decided what it was they were going to work on.
Right.
And they decided if they wanted to tweak it. And at one point, one of the people actually was suggested that they change theirs a little bit, and they got really defensive. And they're like, no, I wanted this one big thing, and I'm going to fight for it. And it's like, okay, and they really had to stand up to each other. And in it, what I saw was a lot of people having conversations with other people in the office that might not have had in that way. And they had good conversations with good outcomes that might have gone badly before because they had more tools of how to have those difficult conversations.
And we heard about the one big thing. What were some of the examples of their one big things? What were some of the things that? Well,
I think Sam gave you hers. She was setting boundaries.
Right.
I think Christy's was, again, pausing and taking a breath and stepping back. Michael Ann's, I know, was about boundaries too. She really had, what was it, Michael Ann, remind me?
Managing my workload to
basically
decrease stress.
And admitting what was on her plate. Michael Ann's a yes person, so if you brought something to her, she'd be like, "Yes, I'll do that." She'd take on more and more, even if she
busy
really.
And
so
really couldn't.
So now she'll sit back and say, "Here's what's realistic for me." Lori was really delegating in a lot of ways, letting go of some things and bringing staff along and sharing projects with them and letting them be the lead, and her taking a support role and kind of watching them come along and see those opportunities. And it's hard. I think all of us have been through that at some point. It's hard to let go.
And I think Tammy's was getting out of her comfort zone and getting involved in leadership roles. So all of them started with, I'm committed to getting better at. So it wasn't like I'm perfecting such and such. It was just, I'm going to get better at this. So as a result, she got on some boards within the community. I now look at her when we're sitting in meetings, and she will speak up first sometimes. And again, I think that's a great thing, because I know she has great ideas, and sometimes you're sitting there in a meeting and I'm thinking, help, But even for Rosemary and I, when I worked on mine, the feedback that I got, you kind of think, well, I think I'm doing things pretty well, but it was my words and my body language were not always in
different
alignment. So I would say things like, "I'm over this," and I really wasn't. So
No.
And they could read your body
they could
language.
totally read
Yes.
me, but I'm like, if I just keep saying that I'm over it, then I will be over it. So now what I say is, I'm just not over that. I'm really mad about that still. And they're like, oh, okay, at least she's owning how angry she is about something. And I think that we laugh about it.
We do, and I think, again, I think having the senior management group go first, everybody has things they can work on. And I think what it showed the entire agency, and I think Sam alluded to it, they got to see the differences in us because of what we worked on.
Got to see how angry I would be.
And honest, but different things that we would all do, to better ourselves. And I think they found the working relationship that we had with everybody was better because of the things that we were working on.
And having a better working relationship, having better employees, what's it do for the company, the overall company?
Well, they like to have fun, these guys. They like to work together. I think overall, I think we have a great team anyway, Tom. They're a lot of fun to work with, but the morale is maybe even just that much better than it is. We get a lot of feedback from people that come in our space and they just walk in our lobby and they'll say to us, this is people that interview our company reps or anybody, they're like, what is it about the place here? Because you can just feel a lightness. It's not like, when sometimes you go in some place in the front desk, there's people out there and they're mad about something and they're talking and there's, there's customers sitting there. It is not the best way to portray your business. People pick up on that and they get kind of like, well, if that's not what's my thing. So I think there's a genuineness to how people work with each other and they're nice, genuinely nice to each other. It's not that we have disagreements, but hopefully it's civil.
I think we also found it gave us a new or stronger appreciation for everybody within the office, and that everybody has differences, and that's okay. We all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, but if you can build on people's strengths, it's going to make the organization that much better. And I think that's part of the atmosphere that people feel when they come in. It's like, my God, you guys all like each other. It's like, yeah, we do. We really do. And I think it just makes it a better place to work, a more fun place to work, and people feel valued.
And Rosemary and Brenda and I all really enjoyed our roles. And I know Sam and Selena counted out me, but I know other people the same thing. They really felt pushed, that there would be times when people weren't doing what they should be, and we would all say, come on, this is, what are you going to do?
I said
about
I was
this?
the nice coach. Right, guys?
Oh, did we have good coach, bad coach?
Yeah, we do a lot of that in the office. But I think with the couple that I coached, I think I was a little more sly. I would listen. I would really listen to something they were saying, and I'd kind of let them go all the way through it, and I'd just sit there and yep, and I'd go, do you realize what you just did? And I'd kind of, pull them back as to what they said, and they go, oh, why do you do that to me every time? But, it was getting them to recognize it in themselves and making them that much stronger.
Yeah, I think it was fun. We had a good
We had
time
a lot of
doing
fun.
it. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. We do have one question. I don't know who wrote it. I
know who wrote it.
I don't think you can
I
see
know
the
who asked
handwriting. She's the only one who wrote the question, so
That's okay.
She's been outed. Did they notice a change in each of us? So this is to the coaches. Have you seen a change in each of the participants?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think everyone, and I feel we have shared that with them, and it's important for them to know that. But I think we really saw a lot of growth personally and professionally among each of them. I think they felt it in what they were doing, and it made a difference, in their work every day.
And I think it shows how hard it is to change a behavior. When you think about it, the reason why people said a whole year we're going to do this, or if you think it's actually been over 16 months from the time we announced it, it takes a long time to change things that we've been doing I'm 54 now. So for 54 years I've been doing the no anger thing one way, because I was raised that you never get angry about anything. And I had to completely switch that to myself and say, anger isn't necessarily a bad emotion. I have to learn the right way to do that. So I think that's, where I come from on this is it takes time to make meaningful change. So the fact that some of them didn't embrace it for the first few months, I would say is kind of predictable in a way, because there's that resistance to change, but they kept coming to the meetings, they kept putting themselves out there. And as Sam said, when Kimberly said to her, then quit. And Sam was like, I'm not a quitter.
So
but she called her.
They're not only the coaches,
was-
but the peers kept pushing them as
The
well.
peers and the we have a consultant that we worked with also pushed them, and so the I would say their peers also looked out for them, kind of defended them. So if they weren't doing their thing, closing their doors and doing whatever, they'd say, "You let somebody just walk in your office. You know, you're not supposed to do that." And then they'd write us up on it, like they'd send a little note to us and say, you weren't supposed to do that. But I think what we're really saying is they have to get better at taking care of themselves, and that's supported within our culture and our organization. Is we want people that are healthy and taking care of themselves.
And it makes for a better work environment for everyone.
Absolutely.
I hope so, Tom. I don't know. Like years from now, I said they're going to be saying, Rod Giltz, he made me save more in my 401k. and I said, I hope when you're like 80, you go, I'm so glad I knew Rod Giltz, because that's what he does.
Thank God he made me do that.
And maybe for me, when my client says that her husband and they're sharing the duties more, nothing could make me happier, because you do have two people in a marriage. And I think as women, and this is all a group of women here, we do have, we had men in the first group and a man in the second group, but we're a largely female organization. I think that women, we take so much on ourselves and we feel responsible for everything, and we don't take good care of ourselves. And that is just the bottom line. And I hope that this gives people a foundation to say you have to take better care of yourself, because when we stop and take care of ourselves, then everything around us is going to be healthier too. Yeah,
Or help you deal with everything around you.
absolutely. Yep. So that's my mantra for the day.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Well, thank you for
Thank
bringing
you for
everyone
having
in. And
us. We had a
Thanks for
great
doing this.
time and
we enjoyed it.
appreciate it.